dumps, big, massive dumps.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. We got a fun day. We got stories. We got Donald Trump and the grand jury. Interesting stuff, but I'm going to say that I'm a little skeptical of what's going on here. So I'm going to explain all that, what's going on, and why I'm skeptical about it. We've got the MyPillow guy, of course, raging because he got kicked out of a conference. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene defending Satan and Hitler. Fun. We have Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema begging Republicans to do the right thing. Yeah, you're going to be shocked to find out what will happen in that case. And then we have, of course, MAGA mad at polling. Of course. As usual. So we're going to have a fun show. It's going to be a fun day. We're going to go through some important news topics as always. Before we do, please like and share. Very important that you do so. In fact, I am going to share this stream right now. It's super easy. I will be sharing it on my Twitter account at Jeff's Politics. If you haven't given me a follow, then what are you doing? I do shit takes. Yes, shit takes all the time. Nothing but shit takes and shit posts. You'll love it. Or you'll probably hate it. All right, anyway. So, that said, let's do it. Let's jump in. We got a grand jury. Interesting. Okay. Yes, lots of shit takes. I meant to say shit posts, but you know, shit takes. I get it. I actually hate mushrooms, but that's a great pun. I love it. All right. Anyway. It appears that former President Donald Trump is big mad over the recent news that the Manhattan District Attorney, Cy Vance, had convened a grand jury that could decide whether or not to indict the former president or other executives at the Trump organization over some financial crimes. Wonderful. All right, so now we're getting to the financial crimes. Fantastic. Now, at issue, of course, is whether Trump lied about his assets, inflated them for loans, and deflated them when it came to property taxes. And so I've talked about that quite a bit before. And, of course, the possibility that Donald Trump, of course, could be a financial white-collar criminal. I mean, the possibility for me personally is incredibly likely. Let's just say that. Incredibly likely. The guy is most likely a criminal. We know, but whether or not he will get punished for being a criminal, well, that remains to be seen. And, of course, that leads to my skepticism, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. We've got much more to go through before we get into my take. Now, basically, what they're going after is tax fraud, which is illegal, technically. Then again, if you're a wealthy person, if you have a lot of influence, laws don't seem to apply to you. I'm just saying. Now, the Washington Post writes that Cy Vance's investigation is expansive, according to people familiar with the probe, public disclosures made during related litigation. There's been a lot of course, there's been actually two different investigations. There's one, of course, from Vance, and then there's Letitia James. And basically the news is that they've kind of overlapped and combined their investigations into one basically gigantic one, which is now apparently got some compelling evidence on their side, at least against the Trump organization, and possibly against Trump himself. Now, the investigators for Vance are scrutinizing Trump's business practices before he was president, including the value of specific properties in the Trump organization's real estate portfolio were manipulated in a way that defrauded banks and insurance companies. Now, we know the number one rule of being wealthy is don't go after members of your class. Don't go after corporations. If you're part of the, well, not necessarily if you're part of the club, but if you're wealthy, never go after the wealthy. Never defraud the rich. Rule number one. Of course, Donald Trump's such a narcissist, and he's such an idiot that he doesn't follow that rule. He'll defraud anybody. Defraud a charity, defraud the Freedom Girls. He doesn't give a shit. As long as it benefits him, as long as he gets something for himself out of it, he'll defraud anybody. Again, he defrauded the American people when he was president. So, anyway, now, getting more details here. Let's see. They also looked at if any tax benefits were obtained illegally through unscrupulous asset valuation. The DA is also examining the compensation provided to top Trump organization executives, including the Trump children, according to people familiar with the matter. In a statement issued on Tuesday evening, Trump called the seating of the grand jury a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in American history. So this is Trump's response. Quote, "It began the day I came down the escalator in Trump Tower, and it's never stopped. They wasted 2 years and $48 million in taxpayer dollars on Mueller and Russia. Impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, and it continues this day with illegally leaked confidential information." They went to the Supreme Court twice to get the tax returns. So, I mean, I'm just saying that is actually going to the proper channels, despite the fact that he fought against this. He then adds, "This is purely political and an affront to the almost 75 million voters who supported me in the presidential election, and it's being driven by highly partisan Democrat prosecutors. Our country is broken. Our elections are rigged, corrupt, and stolen. Our prosecutors are politicized, and I will just have to keep on fighting like I have been for the last 5 years." Oof. But what does any of that have to do with the tax fraud? Does he even know what this is about? I don't think he has a grasp of the situation. Is he so dumb that he doesn't understand that this is not the same as the political trials that he was involved with when he was president? Again, political trial, impeachment doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have done something criminal. Okay, it can involve that, but it doesn't mean that if you get impeached that you face a criminal penalty. No. The penalty, the punishment for being successfully impeached is losing your political position, getting kicked out of office, and losing your pension. That's way different than this. Way different than prison. Okay, for tax fraud, as I said, that is a crime. There are criminal penalties involved here, and that is significant to note. And the fact that this is a special grand jury is also fairly significant. All right. In fact, according to experts, one of them being Rebecca Rolfe, a former assistant DA in Manhattan, who's now professor at a New York law school, said that the recent step of seating a long-term panel, which is what this is going to be, shows that Vance's investigation has progressed to the point that prosecutors will visit the grand jury, present evidence and witnesses, and potentially ask charges be considered. Now, they're not going to present evidence if they don't have any. So obviously, they've got something. The prosecutors, she says, are convinced that they have a case. That's at least how I read it, and she's not the only one. In fact, recently on MSNBC, you had Harry Litman, a former federal prosecutor, saying this.
They got the mother load. They got the tax returns going back and forth to the Supreme Court twice to get them. So that takes all kinds of transactions of this sort and forms the basis for possibly multiple counts where people surmise, and it stands to reason, that it's a similar kind of hanky-panky, changing the way you evaluate same properties, one for tax to make it look low, one for loans to make it look high. That's fraud on both entities. And I think what is happening likely is a plethora of transactions like that core one with Stormy Daniels, which we are learning is sort of the Trump way of doing business, the general MO, and also including Weisselberg.
So now Weisselberg is important because he's the CFO of the Trump organization. If there is any dirty financial dealings, well, that's the guy who would know it. So obviously he would be a target of this. Now, there's more. Now you've also have former senior prosecutor to Robert Mueller, Andrew Weissman, explaining this, how it's really important, and talking about the context of the case. Take a look.
Well, it's important to keep this in context because that reporting is consistent with what was revealed by the New York Attorney General's office this past summer when they were skirmishing with Eric Trump. So this issue of under and overvaluation and tax fraud and bank fraud and perhaps insurance fraud is one that's been going on for some time. I think the big news is that they now have convened a grand jury, and that is certainly a prerequisite to bringing a charge. Whether they get there or not is something that we don't know. I think the fact that they're sitting 3 days a week is unusual and suggests a seriousness of purpose. Since that's not typical. And I would think that this is going to mean that if you're Alan Weisselberg, you are feeling the pressure today, that this is really ratcheting up what's going on.
Again, a big mention is Alan Weisselberg, the CFO. And let me just stop for a moment and just do something that's kind of off topic. What's with the audio? That's like scuffed leftist audio right there. No. Only podcasters like myself on the left are supposed to sound like that. Like, you probably got money for a better mic. Come on. But anyway, I'm no legal expert. But let's just say this. I am not, and this is where my cynicism comes into play. I'm not exactly ready to say,
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Wait. No, not yet. Not yet. And the reason that I say that is I feel like the Trumps have gotten away with so much criminality by now, at least in his lifetime, that I'm kind of convinced at this point that he's going to find some way to weasel out of it. I maybe, again, I'm too much of a cynic, maybe. What I can see here is, yeah, grand jury is important. It's kind of strange that they're sitting there for quite some time. But of course, they can also look at other cases, and they don't necessarily have to be 100% focused on this. I get that, but it is a little unusual. And of course, we do have people that are possibly going to flip on Trump. Again, they keep talking about Weisselberg. He's like the biggest. What I'm saying is that, yeah, there's a lot of contributing factors that might get people excited. But at the same time, I'm just saying, I believe it when I see it. I'm not gonna go through this like, oh, they got him this time again and again. Okay, this is like Lucy in the football. This is what it feels like to me. Because we were supposed to get him with impeachment. Oh, we were supposed to get him with a second impeachment. Oh, we're gonna get him with a Mueller report. Calm down, everybody. Calm down. I get it. Political trials different than criminal trials. I get it. I just feel like rich people tend to get away with way too much, and maybe my cynicism this time is unfounded, or maybe it's 100% founded, because there is a reason that they call him Teflon Don. Okay, and there's another disturbing, by the way, a thing that I'm going to talk about as well. All right, I mean, yes, it seems like they've got an actual case. It seems like they've got a lot of evidence here. But you do also have to remember, half the country's insane. Half of all Republicans, I should say 30% of the country's insane. Half of all Republicans still believe that right now Donald Trump is president. And it's insanity. It's insanity. And by the way, if January 6th taught us anything, is that Donald Trump, his fans, are willing to do insane things. They're willing to do violence on behalf of Donald Trump. I could see a situation where there could be people who are intimidated, who fear for their safety. And so they, that might mean, we can make a deal with Trump where he doesn't go to prison. If they actually find things and actually go after him with this grand jury and there's indictments and any of that. And that's not even a guarantee because we don't know right now the evidence that they actually have. And so I could see all sorts of things going in different directions. I mean, all of this is to say, temper your expectations. Don't go too off the rails. Make sure to follow the facts. Make sure to follow where the case goes. And don't get too excited yet. Trump could start another insurrection. That's another good point. And so, even if it gets to that point, we don't know. So just be skeptical, follow the facts, and we'll see where this entire thing lands. That's all I'm saying. All right. You can't do hush money payments without hanky-panky. That's true. True. I don't think Trump will go to jail because in America, when you're rich and have good connections, you don't go to prison. But DJT will also throw any of the bus, friends, family, etc. Yeah, again, that's along the lines of what I'm thinking. So you kind of nailed it right there. And he's gotten away with so much in his life that I'm just very, very skeptical of this. All right, very skeptical. All right, moving on. Let's dive into the MyPillow guy. Dango, he did mess with other people's money. That's true. But will that, I'm still, again, he's gotten away with so goddamn much. But you guys bring up a good point too. Rich people don't go to jail unless they do damage to other rich people. And he did defraud allegedly insurance companies for the tax fraud in the government. No, they'll probably, I could see them letting that go. But at the same time, you go after other rich people, then we're talking a different ballgame. But again, it all depends on the evidence that comes out and whether or not there are indictments here based on that evidence. And we're just gonna have to see. We're gonna have to wait on this one and see what they actually have in the terms of evidence. So anyway, let's move on to the MyPillow guy. The CEO of MyPillow, Mike Lindell, got a not so warm reception from the Republican Governors Association, which is holding its spring conference in Tennessee. Now, originally, Lindell told Politico that he had flown to Nashville on Monday to attend a 3-day meeting starting on Tuesday, but that only after a few minutes after he collected his credentials at the JW Marriott Hotel, an event coordinator in the lobby told him that he was not welcome, that he was not allowed at any of the official RGA events. Well, now, the good question, of course, is why? Does that have anything to do with his insane conspiracy theories, the fact that he doesn't, that he will not let the 2020 election go, despite promising all this evidence to blow the whole thing apart? Oh my God, and it's going to be so overwhelming that Donald Trump will be swept back into office by the Supreme Court. I mean, does it have anything to do with the fact that he makes Republicans look incredibly unhinged, basically? Well, according to an RGA official, Lindell tried to join transportation for members only for a dinner at the Tennessee governor's mansion and was denied. Oh no. Quote, these events are for RGA members only, and Mike Lindell is currently not an RGA member. Oh, man. Oh, good. Yeah, that clears it right up. There's obviously no conspiracy going on, right? Obviously. Well, not quite. If you ask Mike Lindell, there's obviously something else going on. In fact, here's what he told Steve Bannon.
You know what? Steve, this is a cover-up, too. The RGA, Brian Kemp and Doug Ducey, who's the chairman, should be ashamed of themselves for what they've done. It's all part of this cancel out. I think if they're that afraid to talk to me, you think they can talk to a Democrat? How could they have any kind of courage? They're cowards. Both of them are cowards. Either that or they're hiding something that's so beyond anything we can imagine. A personal agenda. It certainly can't be something for their party. It can't be a political agenda because they're Republicans. Steve, I'll tell you what, I never give up and I will never back down. But these guys, boy, they don't back down on their cover-up. Whatever they're covering up, they certainly, you got to give them credit. They keep to their guns and they keep trying to be obstructionists for the American people, for their own citizens in Arizona and Georgia. And, I'll tell you what, it's beyond belief. When we finally get this to the Supreme Court in 5 or 6 weeks and they pull this election down 9-0, Brian Kemp and Doug Ducey will have to explain. You're going to have Brian Kemp and Doug Ducey front and center. Tell us why you did this, Doug and Brian. And I can't wait for that day when MSNBC goes, you know what? We said it was just a conspiracy, but it looks like it's all true. China attacked our country through the machines. The people were right all along. Why did these people obstruct? And we're going to get answers. That'll be the second phase. They're all going to have to answer.
Well, I mean, look, you got to give him credit. I mean, he's right. He sure does stick to his guns, even if those guns are insane. He's not giving up on it. I mean, 4 years from now, 10 years from now, Mike Lindell is going to be out there, probably living under a bridge somewhere, going, I got the voting machines. I got him. I finally got him. I got the voting machines. Oh, my God. So, completely unhinged. No, it's a cover-up. I don't know what they're covering up, but they're covering up something. Probably China. The election fraud. So, here's the funny thing about this. Not everything he said was complete and utter nonsense. Most of it, yes. But I actually don't buy the excuse from Republicans of, well, we kicked him out because he's not a member of the RGA. Why? Because they let him in before. According to Politico, Lindell has attended previous meetings of the RGA, including back in winter of 2020. So it wasn't long, before that he was actually in. And even when he was there, you had Republican governors that were like, oh, you should run for governor of Minnesota. I think you'd be a great MyPillow governor of Minnesota. It'd be wonderful. In fact, he was a special guest of former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. So, yeah, They brought him in. They brought in the crazy. I bet they regret that now. Again, what changed between winter of 2020 and now? Can you think of any event that might have happened between those times that would make certain Republicans a little uncomfortable to hang out with Mike Lindell? Oh, right. Yes. The January 6th Capitol insurrection and the constant talk of voter fraud. I almost forgot about that. Well, I guess the RGA did not forget about that. Remember, the entire conspiracy theory, that started the riot was voter fraud. And it was being spread by Donald Trump and his allies, including people like Mike Lindell, who you just heard is still talking about this, which has really made the Republican Party look 100% unhinged. It ripped the mask off and showed them for what they are. It basically nothing more than conspiracy mongers, essentially. And then Lindell has been doing nothing since then, other than make, one unhinged appearance after another. Again, you just heard one of them. And unfortunately, half of all Republicans believe him. They believe him. They think Donald Trump's literally the actual president right now, that you could go up into the Oval Office and Donald Trump would be sitting right in front of the desk. I mean, it's insane. My guess is that these people at the RGA are like, maybe we need to, I don't know, not invite crazy. Like, keep the crazy man out of the conference, despite the fact that he actually did have credentials. I don't know who gave him credentials. I don't know. Who knows? Knowing Mike Lindell, it could be like an episode of Parks and Rec, where Ron Swanson basically just printed off his own credentials and was like, no, you understand. I've got a permit to be here. Here's my permit. That's my permit. He just wrote something on a paper. Here you go. Sir, that's not an actual permit. But no, this actually might be legit. And then they realized, the man's crazy. We should stop inviting crazy. I mean, and the logic here follows that Republican politicians, part of the establishment, okay, the Mitch McConnells and all, they hate their base. They really do. They despise them. But, and okay, let me just add to that. They hate the base. They also hate Donald Trump behind the scenes. Now, they're too much of a coward to go and say that in person. Most of them will bend down. They'll kiss the ring. They'll kiss his ass. They'll be like Ted Cruz. They'll even be like Mitt Romney, who will go to dinner with Donald Trump. And then sometimes he'll speak out against him. Sometimes he'll be strong. And then sometimes he'll be like, oh, yes, sir. Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Donald Trump. Yes. Oh, I love you. I mean, that's what it is. Now, most of the base, the useful idiots, love Donald Trump. And so now I think some of that hatred, when I say, Republicans hate their base, I think most politicians do. Democrats hate their base too. I mean, the Democratic establishment thinks that about progressives all the time, that they're idiots, and that they're effing our word, okay? And I'm not going to say that word because it's ableist. But like that was a quote from Rahm Emanuel, a Democratic strategist in the Obama administration. So yeah, the Democratic establishment also hates their base. But there is a difference between the two. While Democrats hate their base, they also ignore them and try to appeal to the Republicans. Whereas the Republicans are afraid of their base. Deeply, deeply afraid. And for good reason. The Republican base is heavily armed and completely unhinged and live in a completely different reality. And so the Republican politicians, they have to be careful about this. On the one hand, they don't want to lose all the corporate donors by embracing Crazyland, but at the same time, they also have to pander to Crazyland, or lest they become targets and lose their positions of power, or worse. So right now, I think they're disinviting people like Mike Lindell because the donors are pretty uncomfortable. And that happens to be better for the mainstream of the party, which is trying to, in some ways, rehabilitate itself so they don't get completely blown out in the next election, but also trying not to piss off their own base. And so they say, well, he's not a member. Say, if he were a member of the RGA, for example, if we were to win election in Minnesota and become the governor, then he'd be part of the Governors Association. And then we'll let him in. Now, what they do after that is anybody's guess. But so far, it's like a stalling tactic. And you can see from Lindell ain't buying it, because he actually is a true believer in his conspiracy. He is a true believer. He has huffed his own supply. And so the unassailable fact here, though, is that Republicans have made the mistake of fraternizing with crazy in order to get an increasingly larger share of a diminishing electorate. And that's what happens. I guess, in a way you could say, fuck around, find out. And they absolutely did. Fun times. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a real quick break. We're going to go back with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then we've got Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema begging Republicans, because they essentially are Republicans. And then we got MAGA supporters going crazy over polls. Because of course. And by the way, Republican polls. Fun. Stay right here. We'll be back. I'll read some super chats if we have any. And thanks some people that are giving to the channel over on Twitch. And stay right here. We'll be right back. Round the Nation.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass keyword.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Round the Nation. Waldorf Nation. So we're back. First, I want to thank Gabby Mathis for the super chat, saying, I can't believe I voted for Sinema. She ran as progressive. What a liar. Absolutely. Bait and switch. And so, I mean, that's horrible, but at least it does tell you one thing. Progressive ideas, pretty popular. And so, yes, there are people who will come in and try to cosplay, be a cosplay progressive, and try to fool you. And it happens. It happens. All right. Anyway, thank you for that. Let's go here. Thank 1981 Menso for the very kind super chat as well. And then let's go over here to Twitch. I forgot to mention yesterday, Monty Mouse with 100 bits. Thank you so much. Regular Mole Rat Dragon also, thank you for the bits. And thank you, One Winged Dragon, for 3 months at tier 1. Awesome. By the way, love the name because it makes me think of Final Fantasy VII. Fantastic game. You know what? Both the original and the remake. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Anyway, let's go to Satan. All right. Fun. Marjorie Taylor Greene's old shenanigans keep coming back to haunt her. Recently, a newly resurfaced video is actually from not from too long ago. Shows the QAnon congresswoman saying that she would defend statues of Hitler and Satan himself. Take a look.
We're seeing situations where Christopher Columbus, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all kinds of statues are being attacked. And it seems to be just an effort to take down history. And whether I see a statue that may be something that I would fully disagree with, like Adolf Hitler, maybe a statue of Satan himself, I would not want to say take it down. But again, it's so that I could tell my children and teach others about who these people are, what they did, and what they may be about.
Does she actually believe that that the only way to know history is through statues? Is that a thing? Oh man, she's gonna get blown away by these things called books. Okay, and I'm sure that she's also going to be incredibly excited to find out the historical additions to our society from one Captain Catherine Janeway of the Starship Voyager. Go check out her statue. It's a statue. It exists. Oh my god. Yeah. So, hey, by the way, the Captain Janeway statue, that's one I can get behind. Let me tell you. But seriously though, the argument that we need statues to preserve history is ridiculous. Statues are not made to preserve history. They are created and placed to either venerate certain historical figures or to celebrate events. Essentially it. And while many statues do carry some historical significance, they also are used mainly to glorify people, and sometimes those people shouldn't be glorified. For example, they had statues of Saddam Hussein. You may not have heard of him because apparently after the Iraq War, a bunch of people tore that statue down. Yeah, I know. Marjorie Taylor Greene probably has no idea who Saddam Hussein is because, no statue. There is literally a statue of Captain Janeway. Yes, it's true. You know what? Let me go back here. I'll show you the picture. I will show you. I will go here and I will find this picture of Captain Janeway. Just hold for a second because apparently y'all don't believe me. Let me just find it here. Best statue ever, by the way. There it is. Literally, real statue, everybody. Captain Janeway. That is a statue I can get behind. Okay, anyway. Y'all, it exists. It's real. Getting back to it, though. So as far as other real statues that have existed that are not so good, you also had statues of course, Joseph Stalin. That also got torn down. So she might not know who Joseph Stalin is. All right. Or, there's only hypothetical statues of Hitler that I know of. But all right. Now, as for Satan, that's actually interesting. Because if you have a statue of Satan, that actually might be protected under the First Amendment. Because, religion, right? Well, it's part of, Satan is a part of the Christian religion. And so, ironically, if you put that up, somebody put the Satan statue up, it doesn't matter who got offended. If it's on private property, you can't really do anything about it. Just saying. I mean, there was cases about this. Now, you couldn't put a Satan statue, or maybe you could, in courthouses and other public, government buildings. I mean, again, there was a case about this. The Satanic Temple was literally trying to put up a statue of Baphomet in order to make a point that, hey, if you're going to put up things like the Ten Commandments inside of our courthouse, well then, since we have freedom of religion, the whole First Amendment thing, that we shouldn't put one religion over others, then I should be able to stick my Baphomet statue right in front of the goddamn courthouse, literally. And so the leaders of the temple said, hey, you know what? Why don't we, in order to make our point, make people really, really uncomfortable by taking a statue of Satan or the devil or whatever, so that they either accept all statues from all different religions or remove the Ten Commandments. And we see how that turned out. And again, how would she feel about a statue of Allah? Right? But back to the point. It's still kind of a bullshit argument to say that if we remove statues, that means that nobody's going to know the history, that nobody's going to be able to learn about these things. Again, there are things called books. There's also, and again, I'm going to blow her mind, there's something called the internet, where you can find all the information that you could ever need. The sum of the entire, entirety of human knowledge is literally on one of these. I know there's lots of bullshit too, and garbage, which she apparently believes, with the whole Jewish space lasers and all that at museums is another good point. Yes, if only we had places to store our beautiful relics. But no, we have knowledge. It's literally everywhere. We have an information overload. There's so much knowledge out there and history that you can find it. Why the hell do you need a statue? Again, because it's to venerate certain things. She was out there defending Confederate generals. Because of course. And so, again, this is just another example of unhinged virtue signaling from Marjorie Troll Greene. It's really what it is. All right. There will never be an MTG statue. Yeah. My town let other religions put things on the courthouse lawn for Christmas. There's a flying spaghetti monster next to the nativity scene. Win! I call that a win. May he touch you with his noodly appendage. Personally, I like a statue of Cisco. That would be a really good statue. I'd be for that too. That'd be an excellent statue. All right, anyway. Corporate Democrats are begging Republicans to try to be decent human beings by supporting the bipartisan commission to investigate the Capitol insurrection happened on January 6th, where people were killed and injured and property was destroyed, damaged, feces were smeared on the walls, that kind of thing. Yeah, Republicans not in favor of this. But here you have a joint statement from Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema calling for the creation of a commission, quote, critical to prevent such an attack from occurring again. So now look, I'm behind the commission. I think most Americans are. We want to find out what happened, why this happened. I mean, I already have my ideas. Donald Trump, the Republican Party, Fox News, and all that, pushing, these ridiculous election lies, and letting Donald Trump essentially go crazy with this rhetoric about there being massive election fraud that you can't prove, that there is no evidence of because it didn't actually happen. That said, they beg. The Democrats are begging them. Quote, we implore our Senate Republican colleagues to work with us to find a path forward on a commission to examine the events of January 6th. But why? Why would Republicans support a commission that would essentially condemn themselves and their own voters. And would also, by the way, point out their own complicity in what happened. This is like asking corrupt cops to support an investigation into corruption in the police department. You think they care? You think they're going to go, oh, yeah, no. Here's what's going to do. We found that nothing happened. Yeah, that's it. If they ever had that commission. I mean, seriously, they're not going to look into it. They don't want to. They're going to have to be forced to look into January 6th because they don't like what they know they're going to find. And so what they're going to do is they're going to block it. They're going to filibuster it. Again, the majority of Republicans in office are complicit in spreading the big lie about the election. And even if you're not, you're still in favor of things that contribute to the idea that there was massive voter fraud. For example, Liz Cheney came out and said, well, even though I don't believe in the big lie, I still believe in voter suppression. I'm still in favor of these laws that restrict voters. And the whole basis for those laws that she supports are the idea that there's voter fraud. So, yeah. Now, obviously, if not enough Republicans support this, well, then Manchin and Sinema, well, they're going to have to do one thing, destroy the filibuster. That is the one thing that they don't want to do, or I should say one of the many things that they want to do that would actually help, bring forward policy that is popular. They don't want to do that. They've refused to do that. Now, the House, however, House Democrats have already passed a bill that would set up a 10-member panel of outside experts. And I give you this context because it's to show you what Republicans are against creating. There would be 5 appointed Democrats, 5 appointed Republicans, as well as some outside experts, okay, to investigate what went wrong on January 6th and to recommend policy changes. Only 35 Republicans supported that bill, which had been written by a Republican and Democrat. You had Benny Thompson of Mississippi and John Katko of New York, the top lawmakers in the Homeland Security Committee. And only 35 Republicans supported that. The vast majority of Republicans against it. And it's worse in the Senate. You're going to have all Republicans against it, essentially. They're openly hostile to the entire idea of investigating what happened on January 6th. And of course, the reason is because you've got you basically got your base who is under control of Daddy Trump. HuffPost notes that Republicans fear that a months-long investigation would anger the former president and hurt them politically during next year's midterm elections, because of course. And then you even have so-called anti-Trump Republicans like Mitch McConnell saying this, that he views the January 6th commission as a, quote, purely political exercise, and that he would rather focus on the Biden administration and not the events in the past. Oh, we don't want to look at the past. We don't want to look at the stuff that we did. No, because it looks, oh, look over there, Biden, squirrel. Go focus on that. This is incredibly rich, coming from a party that, basically looked into, I don't know how many times they held hearings about Benghazi and Hillary Clinton's emails. It was a lot. At least 7 Benghazi investigations and how many hours of depositions about Hillary Clinton's personal emails. I mean, it's hypocritical. They like setting up bullshit commissions and doing partisan hearings. I mean, they wrote the goddamn manual on it. Why would anybody in their right minds believe that Republicans are good faith actors and would actually listen to reason and do the right thing? Oh, right. People that think Republicans are right, like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. We always knew that Manchin was trash, of course. But Sinema fooled a lot of people. She actually ran as a progressive, but then was one of the main people who voted down increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. She basically betrayed workers everywhere with a thumbs down. Those two are the absolute worst that we have in the Senate. Neither of them believe that you should have single-payer health care or a living wage, and are out here now begging Republicans to be decent human beings when you know it's not going to happen. And you know what? They're out there begging right now because they don't want to be forced into a spot where they could betray their beloved filibuster. And I don't know how else to put it. I think they want Republicans to win. They want Republicans to have power because they think Republicans are right. So much for Democrats, right? Jesus. And right now, they need at least 10 Republicans to join them in advancing the bill. But again, that's not going to happen. One, you have Donald Trump, as I said. Here's what Trump said. Unless the murders, riots, and fire bombings into Portland, Minneapolis, Seattle, Chicago, and New York are going to be studied, the discussion should be ended immediately. They're completely different things. They're the completely different things. And then, of course, you've got Republicans that are too scared for Trump, too scared of Trump. They're too complicit in this, or they just don't care. They don't care what happened on January 6th. They also know that even though they're technically in the minority, they've got people like Joe Manchin that are going to run cover for them. Who even admitted, by the way, Joe Manchin said, well, if they block this, well, then I'm still not going to blow up the filibuster. Well, then why vote for it? Why? When you know that Joe Manchin is going to run cover for your ass, why would you do anything? Yeah, it makes no sense. And look, for the people who seem to believe that Republicans might be acting in good faith, I got this to say. Stop. They're not. They're not good faith actors. Their entire goal is to raise money and own the libs. And that's it. The more they own the libs, the more money they make from the base. They don't give a damn about democracy. They never did. And if they did, they wouldn't continue to assault voting rights. And they certainly wouldn't be blocking the commission. They don't care. Their entire party is rotten to the core. What we need to do is chuck out the filibuster and actually try to get things done. And I understand that even if we got rid of the filibuster, Joe Manchin's still not going to do anything. And if he's not willing to do anything, Biden should be willing, if he was actually serious about getting stuff done, then he would be willing to go to war against Manchin and bully him until they go with what Biden wants and the rest of the American people and the rest of the party. That is, of course, unless you're admitting that the rest of the party and Biden don't actually want to get these things done, don't actually care about doing the American family plan, don't actually care about $4 trillion in infrastructure, don't care about child care, don't care about paid leave. What is it, Biden? If you actually care about it, well, then you'd fight for it. Even if that means calling out your precious Joe Manchin and your precious Kirsten Sinema. I'm not saying that you win if you do that and that they'll relent, but I'm saying you should try it. But if you don't do anything and you let Republicans block you and then you let Manchin get away with not blowing up the filibuster, well, then it's very likely you didn't care. But it's also likely that people will see that you don't care and they're not going to vote for you. You're going to lose. You're going to lose your majority because you didn't deliver. You didn't do your job. So if you actually do care, well, you might want to do something about it before it's too late. All right. Last story, kind of lighten it up. If it's one thing Republicans hate, it's reality. And reality seems to have caught up with them in a recent poll from Rasmussen. Now, Rasmussen, anybody who's familiar with Rasmussen knows that they're a conservative polling organization. They actually oversample Republicans, which is interesting because in a recent poll, they asked about Joe Biden's job approval. Turns out he's got some pretty big job approval numbers, even from Rasmussen. In fact, his job approval ratings went to 55%. Even with the heavy weighting by conservatives, he still did way better than Donald Trump. And in other polls, by the way, Biden's actually done better. In a recent Harvard Caps Harris poll, 62% of respondents said that they either strongly or somewhat approve of the job that Biden is doing in the White House, with only 38% disapprove. Now, one of the main reasons, of course, is how he handled COVID. And by the way, that's ironically, that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump lost the election is because of his handling of COVID. 70% of Americans say they like the job that he's done so far in order to rein in the outbreak. He also performs well among voters when it comes to the economy and stimulating jobs, getting 62% approval on each of those. 61% said that they approve on how Biden is administrating government. Now, Biden gets bad reviews on immigration, although 53% still say that they approve on how he's handling the matter. Compare that with Trump in 2017 overall, who never broke 50%, actually got about 45%. And so now, as a progressive, as a leftist, I don't give Biden good marks. But that's to be expected, honestly. I mean, for example, on healthcare, he's not doing a public option. I think a single payer system, that's what we need to go to. But he's not even doing the public option. He completely abandoned that. Not only that, but there was the promise of the $2,000 stimulus. Didn't happen. Didn't get a recurring stimulus at the end of the pandemic. And not only that, we still got kids in cages. We got the Israeli thing, backing Israel 100% when they're the aggressor. And, caused the deaths of hundreds of Palestinian children. You also have, all that other stuff. Prescription drug prices, that's a layup. Canceling student loan debt, total layup. He can do that today, unilaterally, and he hasn't done that. But again, as a progressive, I have a higher standard, and I actually expect, stuff to be done out of our supposed leaders. But that's just me. Understand that I'm going to be much, much harder on Joe Biden than I would be on anybody else. So, or whoever our Democratic leadership is, so-called leadership. All right. I think we can and should do a lot more for the people, especially when it comes to, as I mentioned, healthcare, prescription drugs, all that stuff. But understand that my criticisms are in good faith, and they're based on policy positions. And that's really different than the criticisms from the right wing of Joe Biden. All right. Now, they usually involve Biden being far cooler than he actually is, or are so deeply unhinged that you can't take them seriously. For example, they think that he's a leftist. Oh, you're communist socialist. Are you kidding me? What about Joe Biden is leftist? Not a leftist at all. That's ridiculous. They also say insane things like dictator. Oh, he's a pedophile. He's cognitively impaired. All that stuff. I don't think Biden's as sharp as he used to be. And I definitely think he's a little too handsy. And then, of course, there's allegations from Tara Reid. And so there are some significant issues there. But, again, when you compare that criticism from the far right, they're unhinged. Completely unhinged. Devoid of facts. All right? And yet, despite everything, right, most of the country thinks he's doing an all right job. Now, again, I think that I'm a lot harder. Apparently, we're a lot, as progressives, a lot harder on the Biden administration because we expect them to do better. But most of the country seems to be like, hey, he's doing all right. It polls. What are you going to do? Now, this poll has MAGA raging. In fact, here's some responses to that. One person says, so basically, according to your poll, Joe Biden is more popular right now than Donald Trump ever was? I mean, that's certainly possible, I suppose. But don't those results strike you as just a bit strange? No, not really. I mean, not when you look at that. Generally, Democrats tend to poll better than Republicans. I mean, we saw it with George W. Bush. Before Trump, he was the most No, he was actually less popular when he left office than Donald Trump. Again, we were in the middle of the recession. That's kind of why you don't vote for Republicans. One of the reasons, one of many. And then, of course, you compare that with Obama, who had pretty good approval ratings. Again, as progressives, we're incredibly hard on them, as we should be. And now, same thing. Donald Trump, incredibly low approval ratings, very not popular at all. And then you go to Biden, which is actually statistically more popular. So no, it's not a surprise when you look at facts and objective reality. But see, the right wing, they live in a bubble. They really do live in the bubble. And in that bubble, Trump is the cult leader that everybody idolizes. They love this guy. It's some weird, in this case, celebrity worship shit. And it's really, really weird. And a good example of that, by the way, is the next couple of comments. One says, more fake news. Another one says, who are you calling? I don't know anybody that approves of that fake crook who's illegitimate. And that's just one of many examples. They don't even realize it. They don't even realize reality. Completely different universe. Who's going to tell them? Bizarre. Super bizarre. All right. I think almost all voters don't care about bipartisanship. True. I think they care about results. And I also think that most people don't really understand how it works. They don't understand how our government is basically set up to not change very fast. I mean, it really is set up with so many different quote unquote checks and balances to make sure that regular people, this is why we don't have direct democracy, by the way, to make sure that we're not run by the will of the people, but instead by the will of the elected officials. And so it is one of those things where people don't understand why things aren't changing. Well, we not only have a slow deliberative body that, barely moves any legislation by, but the system is also massively corrupted. And so, I wish more people would understand that. All right, anyway. That's all I got for y'all, by the way. I got to figure out who to raid. Who do we raid today on Twitch? Who is on? Okay. Let's see. Could do Antifada, Serfs, Aristocracy. I think we'll do a Surfy raid today. Or no, let's go to Antifada. We'll do that. As far as everybody else, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Canada is enjoying the hell out of a tiny bit of socialism. Wouldn't that be nice? I'd love that. All right. Anyway, love you all. Thank you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all later.
Big, massive dumps.
Wet ass keyword.
I have not loved this conversation.
Masturbate all day long.
Who's got a hammer?
Please clap.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.